On this episode of the AVB Podcast, we are here in lovely London, Ontario at the St. Regis with the president of Allstage, Mr. Jim McCormick. How's it going, man?
Good, brother. Nice to see you.
It's really nice to finally be able to meet you. When we first got in here, I had said to you, like, I remember finding you suddenly on my Facebook page, and we were like Facebook friends or whatever, and then saw that you were posting some stuff and that you were active in London and thought that was interesting. And then suddenly start getting messages from like random people going like, hey, do you know this Jim McCormick guy? You should talk to him because he's got some stuff going on. So, hey, how's it going, man?
Good, brother. Really good.
Really good. I will, let's start with you the same way we start with everybody on this show.
Sure.
I want to know about the house you grew up in. Tell me what being a kid was like for you. Mom and dad, brothers and sisters, all that kind of shit.
I had phenomenal parents. I grew up in East London, Nelson Park. You know, a typical kid, you play road hockey and everything else. And you know, there's probably a million drummers who will say this. Saw the Beatles for the first time on the Ed Sullivan Show. And seeing Ringo Starr play, and it was like, wow, this is really cool. So I wanted to play drums, and my parents said, we'll take you and put you in drum lessons for a year. I can still remember the guy named Vic Denemy. And if you, after a year, we'll consider buying you a set of drums. So I had this little 6-inch practice pad, and you know, I'd be in my bedroom banging away on this thing for hours. So finally we got to the point, and one Christmas I remember, just at Christmas, my parents and I were just talking about this. I had this little turtle in the den upstairs, and my dad says, Christmas morning, he says, have you fed your turtle this morning? I went, no. So he says, well, you better go feed them before we get into the whole Christmas wrapping thing. So I went booting up the stairs, swung the door open, and there, sitting beside the turtle thing, was a set of 67 silver sparkle drums.
Okay.
So like, you know, like I was ecstatic. Now, this is back in a time when there was one breadwinner in the house.
Right.
Okay, like my parents bought their house brand new in '64 for like $32,000.
Right.
So for them to make, and my dad told me years later, he said, yeah, that cost us $500. Well, $500 in 1967
It was a lot.
was a ton of money.
Yeah.
And you know, like they weren't, you know, it wasn't the attitude of, well, you owe us, but they said, you know, like we made sacrifices through the year and squirreled money away so you could have that drum kit. So I like, that started me on the road, and I got my first band, and to this day, my mom and dad live up in Nipperwash. I have a band called Bender, and I run a jam at Norma Jean's here in the city, and my parents, they're in their 80s, still come to every Bender show.
Get out.
I'm not shitting you, man. They come to every Bender show. They'll come to a jam about once every 5 weeks or something. And it's a running joke, but it's serious. Like when they drive home at night, I say, "Call me when you get home."
Right.
And it's gone full flip now because I was a kid that, you know, call us, let us know where you are, little Jimmy. So now, and like if I don't hear from them, like I know how long it takes to get there. So then I start doing panic mode.
Right.
They usually stay till around 1 o'clock at a bar that we're playing at, and they go everywhere, like Port Stanley, Riffs and Woodstock, like they go everywhere to see us play. They've gone to Manny's and Brantford.
You got winners there.
And you know what? The cool thing growing up, I'll make this short.
No.
When my parents had parties, my mom was young when she had me, so when they were about 35. They were borrowing my records, the Black Sabbath, the Deep Purple, Stones, and they were albums,
right?
You know. So when they had their neighborhood parties, the parents, my parents would bundle up my albums and take my albums to the party. And my friends used to go, like, because their friends were listening to Lawrence Welk and the Rat Pack, and,
right?
And they're going, my friends would be so jealous. They'd be like, "You got the coolest parents on the block. Like, they like Black Sabbath and Deep Purple." So yeah.
That's amazing, man.
Yeah.
So was like, how old? I know you said this. How old were you when you got the kit?
67, so I was 11 years old.
Oh, so
9 years old.
So you're young, young.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
So how long was it before you had the kit in the bedroom kind of thing until you were out playing with other people? Like you took it as a thing.
I started playing. I started dragging it to music. I remember a teacher, Mr. Potter, at Lord Nelson Public School. So I used to drag it to school and play it in music class, and I twist and whine and complain to get them to let me play.
Right.
My first band was a band called Purple Sapphire, which is an interesting story behind that. And so I was we were playing Friday nighters, so that was like public schools had party or dances on Friday nights, and they would hire sometimes bands. So I was probably at that point about 14, maybe 15 years of age.
And making money playing.
Yeah, and like, like everything's relevant. Eh?
Yeah.
Like we would get paid $30. There's 4 of us in the band.
I already see the issue.
So I had my $7.50. Now, unfortunately, at that time, they didn't have beer in the public schools.
Right.
Which was a good thing because I when it came Saturday morning, I still had my $7.50.
Right.
And I would boot my ass down to Argyle Mall to a record store and buy the latest album of whoever for $4.99. Now that pretty well pulverized my $7.50.
Right.
But getting paid, all of a sudden now I could buy albums.
Right.
And then that just fueled the fire because you're hearing, Alice Cooper and whatever else, and you're going, yeah, this is so cool. So it's throwing wood on the fire to enhance your desire for music.
Were you? It sounds like you were an only child.
My younger brother was born. There's 13 years between us.
Oh, so big gap.
Oh yeah, huge gap.
Okay.
Yeah, so I don't know what was going on that night, but anyways, yeah.
Well, no, the problem is you know exactly what was going on.
Kids don't want to think of their parents having sex.
Right. So your younger brother's about 13 years younger. Is there? This is going in a direction we shouldn't. But like, is there? You have there's a clear connection with you and your parents that way.
Yep.
Does your brother have that same kind of connection with them?
Yeah, he's close to them. He lives out in Calgary.
Oh, okay.
But he wasn't musically inclined. He went the sports route.
But were your parents the same way as far as him and his sports as they were with you in music?
Honestly, no.
Okay.
Now, I don't know if that's, my parents are really level. I don't believe for a second because I was firstborn, the favorite child.
Yeah.
But my parents also, like my dad bought this old open trailer. We ended up building a blocks, sides and roof for it. And my mom would book the gigs at the public schools or high schools because we went from public schools. And then my dad would tear home from work and we would take our gear. There was no such thing as having drum cases. I just took a set of drums and threw them in the back.
Right.
And
the Pearl Sparkle kit.
And then my dad would drive us to the gig and he'd stay there all night. And then, so my parents were really involved in what I was doing.
Right.
Which was really cool because I could share it with them and they could share it with me.
Yeah.
It
sounds like, because you said your mom was young, like they were young when they had you. So it sounded like they they related more kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So going through high school, because that must have been a major change for you, though. Come to think of it, your brother suddenly comes in. Suddenly, there's this alien invading your family. You know what I mean? Right? Because it changes the dynamic. Because at 13, you kind of know what the fuck you're doing here. You've got a family. This is how it works. And then all of a sudden, it changes some stuff. How was that transition for you? Because it's a weird period of time. There's a lot of stuff changing now.
No, like when his name's Jason, when he came on the scene, I was excited to have a younger brother, and you start thinking here I got somebody that can play sports with, and yada yada yada. But you're young, and then you don't really think about the fact. Well, wait a minute, dude. There's 13 years difference. So when you're 17, he's 4. He's not going to be throwing the football with it.
Right.
So no, and when my parents were paying attention to him as a newborn and as a young kid, it didn't bother me in the slightest because I still had this thing here.
Right.
I still had this set of drums,
Yeah.
this band I had started. So I had my own focus. As parents, they did what they had to do because this is the newest kid in the block, right? My brother. So there was never any, like, what are you doing in my headspace kind of thing. I still had my own thing to do. And as I got older, and subsequently he got older, he had his own friends and his own interests, like sports and stuff like that. And I continued doing the music thing. So, there was never any crossing the lines. And my parents, like I've got fantastic parents.
Yeah, no, obviously.
I'm really fortunate.
When okay, so you go through high school, you're a musician, you're a working musician through high school, right?
I had a job. I had a day job.
Oh, you had another day job on top of that too.
Yeah.
What were you doing?
I did it. I
Bunch of different things.
stacking bricks, working for furniture companies. I had lots of friends that wanted to go on the road.
Okay.
Go on the road kind of thing. And I was never one of those guys that wanted to go on the road. My friends were out there, they're touring northern Ontario and everything. They're sleeping in their vans in the middle of winter. They're eating musician soup, which is hot water and Heinz ketchup. And I was like, I've got a job, I'm making money, I'm playing on the weekend, and I'm making money that I can buy more drum gear.
Right.
And I just didn't want to do it. Like, I'm not a big traveler anyways.
Okay.
Even now, like Barb's saying, let's go here, let's go there. I'm not a big traveler. So, and it's funny, I've had this good buddy of mine, Brian Ballmer, and
We were, because I know Mark Chichkin pretty well.
Yeah.
And so we were just talking about Brian like 2 days ago.
So Brian, I think it was last summer, you say, because he goes on this camping thing in the fall.
Okay.
And like he goes into the backwoods and like he's crapping in the lake and all that other stuff.
Right.
And I said, dude, no, I can't. My idea of camping is being in a Hilton or a Marriott. And he goes, I can see now why. He says, you never wanted to go on the road. He says, you never crapped in a bucket in the back of a van with 6 other guys and a whole bunch of gear. And I was like, no, dude, that's exactly why I didn't go.
That's hilarious. So what was the musical route for you then?
I played public schools. I did charity events even back then. 2 that meant the world to me was I played at Children's Psychiatric Research Institute here in London.
Okay.
And the one that was a big one to me was used to play at the old Parkwood every year for the veterans. My grandfather's brother was a veteran, and he took me in there one time when I was real young. And it just rocked my world. So, long story short, and this gets me a little on the edge, bear with me.
Show, please.
We used to do this thing every year. We played for free. And my dad actually has Polaroid pictures of this. I have the picture at home.
Okay.
So there was this one old guy who would sit in the audience. For 2 hours, he'd sit here like this. First year, my dad didn't think anything of it. Second year, same guy shows up. Dad takes a picture of him from behind with his hand like this. So my dad come up to him afterwards and he says, I noticed all through my boy's band playing, and you sit there with your hand on your head. Now these are Second World War veterans, okay? Because this is back in the early 70s. And he said, yeah, he says, I took shrapnel, he says, it ripped half my head off. And he says, they put in a metal plate and did whatever they did for his skill. And he says, when the band's playing, he says, the vibrations makes the plate rattle in my hand. When I hold my hand, it stops it. And my dad says, well, is that painful? And he says, oh, the pain's excruciating. And my dad says, well, you were here last year and you're here now and you stay through the whole thing. He says, what if it's that painful, why wouldn't you just get up and leave? And this guy said to my dad, he said, and my dad said he took his hand like this, and he said, the whole world out there has forgotten about us in here. He said, your son comes in here and does this for us once a year for 2 hours. He said, he hasn't forgotten about us, so I'm not going to walk out on him.
That's fucking amazing.
And you know, it's even like this is like 40 years later, and it's still that thump in that chest. So I used to do those 2 benefits, and then went to the high schools. We rolled in a Beck Collegiate the week after Thundermuck, and we were nowhere near as good a band. I've told Eddie Pranskis this. Eddie's a friend of mine, and we actually pulled more people to our show than Thundermug the previous week, and I always bug him about that, and he just shakes his head at me. And so then I went to the bar scene, and did that, and like I played bars in southwestern Ontario. I didn't want to get any of the up north, out west, out east stuff.
Right.
So we did that back when you could smoke in bars, and it was 9 to 1. There was actually people in bars.
Mm-hmm. This is like what, through the late 70s, early 80s?
Yeah. And then 83, I was on stage at a bar in Strathroy, and I had been playing a lot. I'd been doing benefits, I'd been playing public schools, high schools, playing a ton of bars. I'm on stage. We were doing a Thursday, Friday, Saturday. It was Friday night, and all of a sudden, it's like, this is no fun anymore.
While you're on stage?
While I'm on stage.
Okay.
I'm in the middle of, we did 3 sets back then, and it was it was on the Friday night, middle set, and I'm playing away, and it was like, I'm done. And I'm kind of guy, if something ceases to interest me, I let it go.
Right.
And I said to the guys, I said, I'll do it tomorrow night. Monday comes, I'm done. And they didn't believe me. And I had this huge Tama kit with rototoms and all this stuff.
Tell me about sorry, I don't mean to interrupt,
No
but tell me about the gig. Was there anything particular about the gig that you remember?
Yeah, I remember the toughest guy in Strathroy became my best buddy. Because he liked the size of my arms and my long hair. And he said, if anybody gives you a hassle here, he says, you come and get me. And I said to the waitress, like 20 minutes later, I said, who is this guy? And she said, is he kind of not like you? And I said, no, he just treats me like his best friend if anybody has a problem with me. She said, he is the toughest guy in this town. She says, he's never lost a fight, and he smokes about 6 guys a night in this bar. She says, if he's on your side, you got it made. So that's what I remember about playing it. And every time we went back there, he'd come up to me like we were a family, and if anybody gives you a problem, he says, you come get me. And he says, I'll fix the problem. And I remember I was on stage, and there was a booth, like an L-shaped booth, and he was here, there was a girl here, and a guy sitting there, and we're playing away, and the house lights came down a little bit, and all of a sudden I see him reach over the girl, and he pile drived the guy right underneath the table. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm going to make sure he's my best friend.
That's funny. Okay, so you tell the guys you're done.
Yep.
Monday morning comes.
Sold everything.
Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah. And back then, that Tama kit cost me, it was Tama Imperial Star, when Imperial Star was really, really a good brand.
Right.
I think the whole kit, cymbals, drums, rotos, cases, because I had all the hard shell case, it was like $3,000 worth of gear.
And this is $3,000 in '83.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Monday came, put an ad, sold like the next day. Never touched sticks or nothing for 25 years. From 83 to December 2008, didn't play anymore. Nothing. I went and saw bands, and I still have friends in the biz, but I just, it stopped being fun, and I gave it up, and then my wife Barb pulled a sneaky trick, and then now I'm back into it.
Okay, well, before we get to the sneaky trick, what was life like during those 25 years? What were you doing, and how were you feeling about it, I guess is my real question.
At first it was kind of withdrawal. And then I was working 2 jobs, and
how long did it take you to figure out what to do with your fucking time?
not very long, because I was working nonstop.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I had bought a brand new car, and 2 years into having this brand new car, I want to turn it into a show car. So then I started working a second job, and then became a steel worker. So I was working a lot. I was working 6-7 days a week, 18 hours a day.
Right.
It was now, did I do it because of the money, or did subconsciously I do it to shift myself away from something I'd done since a kid?
Right.
Who knows?
Right.
I would think money would have
A big
determined
chunk to
factor.
do it. Yeah, right.
You know, but the fact that I always kept busy.
Yeah.
You know, and when I went out and seen friends play and stuff, I didn't feel like, shit, I should be up on that stage.
No?
No, it was really weird because it had stopped being fun.
Right.
You know, like you're going through things with band members and fights in bars and all, you know, if you're playing a week and you're slugging your gear, and I was working, so it's not like I could sleep during the day.
Right.
So I'd play at night and then go to a day job. And I just finally, it was just like, man, I'm just burnt here.
Right. Were you keep saying Barb, I'm assuming that's the wife?
That's my wife.
Okay, were you guys together at that time? Like, I don't know how long. Okay, so is there a significant other at the time that's sort of like pushing you in one direction or another? Is it just you're like, fucking, I'm done?
I had been married, had a kid.
Okay.
That went to shit. So it was just me, like, you know.
Yeah.
You know.
Mm-hmm.
So,
25 years and you're done. You're just out.
Yep.
Okay. So we meet Barb, we happy romance, and then tell me about the sneaky.
Well, we used to go to his Christmas party every December at a friend's place. And he had a couple of people over with acoustic guitars, and there was electric kit sitting there, electronic kit.
Yeah.
And Barb...
So this is what, 08?
06 to 08.
Okay.
So Barb would say, get in the kit. And I'd say, no, like, you don't understand. Like, it's like a heroin addiction. If you get back on one, then you'll, you know.
Yeah.
And so in 2008, she says, get in the kit. Now, what I didn't realize till after, she was feeding me shots through the night to put my mindset. Yeah, she's a brilliant woman, but she's also very conniving. So then I thought, like, she's bugging me through the night, and I've had a few to drink, and I thought, you know what, I'm just going to put this to rest. I'm going to get on the kit, play like a moron, because I don't know what I'm doing now all 25 years later.
Greatest sales technique of all time.
Yeah.
Let them think it's their fucking idea.
Yeah. And that'll put it to rest, and no more at these Christmas parties will she ask me to do this again.
Right.
And I said to her, I said, if I do this, there's a good chance that 2 weeks from now I'll be down Ballones buying a drum kit. She laughed, having her shot. I get in the drum kit, played for about 45 minutes.
You played for 45 minutes your first time back in 25 years?
Yeah, but believe me, man, it wasn't pretty.
Well, yeah, but still, even like
Left, right. You know, yeah, that whole thing, you never forget how to ride a bike.
Yeah.
That's crap.
Sometimes you fall down?
Yeah. So, we got through the night. 2 weeks later, I went down to JB's. I bought my set of Sonar drums that I use in Bender now, 10 grand, and then it's from there. I created a band, the Bender Band.
Yeah.
And from there, it's been, now I have 3 kits. I run jams. I have Bender. Yeah, like it's a monster. And I will say, turn to her and say, do you ever regret bugging me to play a kit? And she's frankly, no.
Really?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
So when you say she's being sneaky just to feed you in, but did she want to see you kind of continue it on, or did she just want to get you up on the kit to get you up on the kit kind of thing?
I think she wanted to see me play again.
Right.
Because she had never seen me play.
Right.
And she knew, like, I'm so passionate about music.
Right.
And so yeah, I think she just wanted to see me play for starters.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I said to her, I said, I want to buy a kit. And she said, okay, well, you know, what are we talking here? And I said, well, there's a Sonar kit down at Ballones. It was a basic kit for like $1,000. And then of course I ordered more drums, Sonar drums, to match the kit.
Right.
And this, that. And so yeah, like it became 10 grand. I was a steelworker at the time, so money wasn't an issue.
Right.
And that was kind of like my little thing.
Right.
And then it just ballooned from there.
Yeah.
You know.
Okay, so when does Allstage come into the picture here?
When I retired from working in 2012, I used to always have my friends text, call me, whatever, and they say, "Who's playing in town tonight?" And I'm like, "Dude, like, do you think I'm some oracle or something? Like, how would I know? You know, like I know some of my friends who are playing, but like I don't know where everybody is." And I started thinking about it afterward. And Trevor Lamas, a very, very dear family friend, he used to work for Sony Records. When I retired, he said, "Find something that you love to do now." Because at the time I was like 55.
That was actually my next question. Yeah, you're 55
Yeah.
when you retired. Yeah. Okay.
And he said, like, you know, like your life's not over. You're not the kind of guy that just sit there on the couch and watch TV all day, although sometimes I am. He said, find something you love to do. And he says, you're passionate about music, so why not get into the music thing? So anyways, like all my friends are asking me who's playing where, blah, blah, blah. And I'm thinking, you know, you can go on eBay, and if you need a certain size bolt, punch it in, bam, there it is, you know. And I thought, like, why? And I did some research, and there's some people in the city that were kind of half-assed doing this kind of thing, but like the dates would be out of date and stuff like that. So I thought, well, why don't I try to put this into play? And so I created a website of my own, and it wasn't too long before I realized, okay, that GoDaddy website for this kind of thing is just not going to fly.
Right.
Now it's like the drum thing. Now we've gotten on a road where it's just going to become more costly and bigger as time goes on. I said to Barb, like, oh, do we want to go down this road?
Right.
And she said, sure, why not? Like, this is what you love to do. So there we go.
All right.
Now we're here. We've got a bigger site. We've got apps. We have
So talk about what Allstage is and what you guys do.
Okay, we promote bands, venues, live events, and we have affiliates like the PA Shop, Charterhouse Records, people in the music scene here in London. I give them a place to put their business on my page, and as time goes on, you evolve. So like at first it was like I only listed gigs by paid members, and it was like a whole $30 a year. So like I'm not getting rich off this.
Right.
And then as time kind of went on, it's like, okay, how about we just, and this year I've really dug in to start doing this. Why don't we list the events by venues across the city to the most part that we can? Because a lot of venues, like if you look up who's playing where on their pages,
They're really bad at it.
yeah, they're not, most of them are really good.
And by the way, that's across the board. Like that's every city. That's Windsor. That's London. That's Toronto. That's all the cities. They're like bar owners are busy being bar owners.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, and so this year I've kind of taken a bit of a, if you want to be promoted across the social platform that's like LinkedIn, Twitter, and like we have over 16,000 followers, Facebook, yada yada yada. Yeah, it's $30 a year, and it's what, $2 a month kind of thing, you know. And I get people to complain about that.
Of course.
You know, but a band can join Allstage, have a free page, list their events, and it's still on the website and both apps.
Right.
And they don't get charged for it.
Right.
And that's where I'm really kind of expanding it now. If you want to pay that whole crushing $30 a year for extra things, you know, it's no different than if you order a car, the dealership doesn't give you a car loaded to the max with all the options.
Yeah.
You have to pay for it.
Yeah.
In my case, it's cost you $2.20 a month.
Right. Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. What are like? Talk to me about some of the events and and even give me stories if you want of some of them, because I know because since you've started Allstage, one of the things that I do know about you is that you're very connected. You're kind of continuing on, going back to that, like hanging out at Parkwood and dealing with the veteran stuff. You've continued that off to some more stuff, right?
Yeah.
You want to talk about that?
We're here in London. Barb and I are huge animal lovers. Allstage puts on an event in our driveway every year. The proceeds.
You do it at your house?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I have a ton of music friends.
Right.
And when you mention animals, bam, you got them in a good sense.
Yeah.
Because they relate to that.
Right.
Everybody has the same attitude about people who abandon dogs or abuse animals.
Mm-hmm.
So we do this thing. People jump on board and they love it because we live in a cul-de-sac.
Okay.
So I already got clearance from the city and everything. So I put the bands and everything in my driveway. I supply all the back line. They come in. People bring their lawn chairs. They sit on the grass in the cul-de-sac. A whole bunch of musicians get up and play all day. And the whole price of admission is something for Salthaven, Brian Salthaven Wildlife Sanctuary,
Okay.
or Animal Alert.
Okay.
And we usually end up with 2 trucks worth of stuff.
Wow.
And so this is what we do. So with Allstage, I've been involved, and it's important to me. Kids with cancer, families who have all of a sudden come across some catastrophic illness that, like all of a sudden you've got 2 breadwinners, one's down,
Mm-hmm.
and they have bills pouring in. Crippled kids, we do a thing every year for Toys for Tots, but there's lots of bands and lots of musicians in the city who do the exact same thing with that. So yeah, charity is a big thing to us, and I really feel if you have an opportunity to give back, and you can tap into people of the same mindset that can help you accomplish something for somebody who's not in a good position in life,
Right.
it's your obligation to do it. And you will find, and I've always found this, if I've done charity events, I phone Doug Vardy or Sarah Smith or Brian Ballmer or whatever and say, look, I'm doing this charity event, can you help me out? And man, they're there in a heartbeat.
Every time, right?
Every time.
It's funny because there's this thing with musicians sometimes, and the conversation happens, and it's the exposure dollar thing, right?
Yeah.
And there's every time I hear somebody sort of going off about playing for free or you got to get paid or whatever, this is the kind of thing that I always come back to and think about. If you're never doing stuff that's giving back to the community, you're missing the boat on how to do this.
Absolutely. I can do a Bender gig and walk out there with money in my pocket. I love being on stage. As far as I'm concerned, I get paid for slugging my gear in and out.
Yeah.
I do that 2 hours on stage for me and the people that get off their ass and come see our band.
Mm-hmm.
As much as I enjoy and love doing that, it's nowhere in comparison that when you're doing a benefit where there's some kid sitting there in a wheelchair, and I got back and shoulder issues, and we all get up and go, damn it, I don't feel good, I got a headache, blah 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 blah, and then you see some kid in a wheelchair, or some guy's wife who's struck with cancer,
Mm-hmm.
and there's no feeling in the world that at the end of the day, you don't even have to say anything. When you've done something and you've raised a couple of grand for that kid or that man's wife who's got cancer, there's no feeling like that. There's no feeling in the world. And if you don't have that inside you don't have a pulse.
Right.
Yeah,
for sure. No, 100%. Do you get resistance?
From
Well, because you said most of the people that you call up immediately just jump on board. But do you run into those that are nah, I'm not doing one of those?
No. The only time,
that's good to hear.
Yeah, the only time that I've been turned down is the wrong word.
Sure.
Is they've just simply got something.
Schedule conflict.
They've got a gig. They're not feeling well.
Mm-hmm.
I've been doing these benefits since, I don't know, 8-9 years. And I've never had somebody say, if I don't get paid, I'm not doing this.
Right.
Not once.
Yeah. As you're sort of like going forward here with Allstage, what's the goal, man? Like what are you like? Clearly, well, your initial goal was to start bringing people together and start like getting
Yep.
the community together. You seem like you're well on your way.
There's a lot of people, like I may have, all stage is what all stage is.
Mm-hmm.
But make absolutely no mistake, there's other people in the city,
Mm-hmm.
London Reverb, the London Music Office, London Tourism. There's lots of people um, who are who have the same idea and try to help the music industry just like I do.
Okay.
That's the beauty. It's not just a single tugboat here.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's got their own different thing. Um, and I see a lot of these people. Like when I
That
go,
was my next question. Do you guys work together? Do you guys interact with each other? What is that part of it like?
I work a lot with the Four City London Music Awards,
Okay.
which used to be the Jacks. I'm on two committees at City Hall under the London Music Office. Um, I'm on the executive board for the London Music Association. So I meet a lot of people when I'm out.
Mm.
And sometimes we partner up. Like I might partner up with the Woodshed.
Okay.
It's an organization here in the city.
Mm-hmm.
You'll find that in certain times you'll get together and say, hey, how about we work together on this?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the beauty of it.
Right.
Everybody's doing their own little thing. It might be their own little thing,
Right.
but they're still part of the bigger picture.
It's their little
Yeah.
thing in the big piece. Yeah.
Yeah.
Talk to me. It's interesting because you reminded, and I'm really glad you did, but you reminded me of something, and that's the major difference between that I'm aware of between the Windsor and the London music scenes is London seems to have a bit, not a bit more, but substantially more of a infrastructure
Yep.
for musicians than Windsor does. You just said you're on a couple of the boards that I assume are responsible for some of this stuff. Do you want to talk to me at all about at least your perspective on how that came to be, where it's at, like benefits for it, like that kind of thing? Like there's going to be people in Windsor that want to do the same thing that you're talking about there that is already sort of happening here. Talk to them about, tell them what how to do it, basically, right?
To be honest here, from Windsor to Toronto to Sudbury, I have lots of people say to me, what are you guys doing in London? Because that's all we keep hearing about is the London music scene.
Right.
Which sounds like, there's a lot of people on the ground doing the work to pull things together. Like the London Music Office committees I'm on, one's a musicians task force, one's a business of music task force.
Mm-hmm.
And the business of music task force takes representatives from education, music education, venues, musicians, arts councils involved, London Arts Council.
Mm-hmm.
So you have this melting pot of ideas and people coming up with things. They built the Flex Street here. Now the Flex Street in London downtown, for people that don't know, is going to be a special area of downtown London core, which for the most part in the 80s, 90s, and now has been just like an apocalyptic piss hole.
Right.
It's going to have live music in the summertime. They're going to have special events about live music. All I can say is, and if you have these committees, you have to leave your ego at the door. Like when I walk into any of the London Music Office committees, I don't say a thing about Allstage.
Right.
Allstage is left at the elevator.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody that I work with on those committees, they do the exact same thing.
Okay.
Hats off to them. It's not about them. It's not about getting across their agenda.
Yep.
It's about collectively working together.
Okay.
The one thing I'm really starting to see, and it never used to be this way, there was cover bars in the city and indie bars. The two never crossed.
Right.
And Adelaide Street here was like the magic line.
Okay.
Okay. The indie bars and indie bands played there, those of us in cover bands, we played there. Now what you're seeing is the indie bands are crossing over and getting gigs in the cover club bars.
Oh, great.
Which I think is just dynamite because we have got some killer indie
That's
bands in the city.
amazing, actually.
So that's one thing that's happened, that it's that little antagonistic wall between the two camps is crumbling.
Right.
And now these young indie musicians are getting into clubs that usually were owned by guys like me.
Right.
And not only are they getting in the clubs, they're getting in the clubs, doing a killer job because they're really good bands, and then they're getting booked back in.
That's amazing.
And, you know, that just opens the floodgate. And, you know, like London Music Hall downtown, they get lots of indie bands out there. That's like the crown jewel of bars here in the city. Like it's huge. Mike Manuel sunk $2 or $3 or $4 million in this place.
Okay.
Big stage, full production, seats like 1,400 people. They get indie bands in there, which is a great platform. They get them to open for bigger acts coming through, like Uriah Heep or whatever. So that's worked out really good there. It gives, and they get paid. It's not a, oh, we'll do this for exposure shit.
Right.
They get paid as they should. But yeah, the crossover to the cover band clubs, that's the one thing I'm kind of like, this is cool. Because now we're both on the same stage.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Does it probably doesn't, just because the business model doesn't work, but it doesn't tend to go the other way, right? Because one thing that I find is neat in Windsor, the reason I ask this, is it doesn't happen very, very often. But like I'm starting to see right now, like you said, there's the cover band, like there's the cover guys, and then there's the original guys, and then there's that like cool group in the middle that like does the cover band but writes some original stuff, right?
Yep.
So, but I'm starting to see more and more of the cover guys kind of going, oh, by the way, I write too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they're traditionally cover bands, and then now they're starting to pop up in some of these original places and kind of doing that a little more as well. I thought I kind of starting to feel that in Windsor a little bit. I think that's a little neat.
See, the cover band, like the cover bands won't play in the indie clubs. Not because they don't like the clubs, not because
The audiences don't want to. That's not where they're there.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They're not there to hear a cover band. If they want that, then they would go
Go to the cover band
Yeah.
place. Yeah.
But it's also a thing of money. So you have the cover band that says, we get paid and we're not playing for the door.
Right.
Because we can play over here and get, you know, $500, $600, $700. So we're not going to go there and, you know, make 100.
Right.
And that's the part that is so unfair, because the indie bands that play the indie clubs, they're playing for the door. You know, they might get $100, $200 to split amongst 4 or 5 guys. They have to rely more on their work. It's a tougher haul for them. And that's the part that really sucks, because I have lots of friends in indie bands, and I'm telling you, man, they are killer acts.
Oh yeah.
And when they're playing a club and they're only walking out 4 or 5 of them with $40, $50 in their pocket, it's a crime, because they deserve to be making much money as I play when I.
Right.
But it's a different thing. Like,
Oh, and it is. It's a totally different thing. If it was that easy to make money with original music, it wouldn't be as worth as much, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
You know, like it's the ones that kind of pop for a reason.
Yeah.
You know, usually it's work ethic more than anything else. You know.
Well, you know, like now we're venturing into a dangerous area. Musician's job.
Barb's not the only one who can be sneaky.
Yeah. A musician's job is to sell beer. Okay? And when you say that to some musicians, they just freak out. But dude, if that cash register's not ringing at the end of the night, there's no reason for you to be there, and the bar owner is going to get somebody else. So if you can go in there, and I don't care if you've got a monkey and a popcorn maker on stage with you, and you have that till just cranked all night going king, king, king,
You win.
you win. Second thing is, you're an entertainer. Now, I just saw a band, King's Limit, on the weekend. And I can tell you, Vulture's playing Ruckus, Nostalgic Bright Lights, Matt, lots of indie bands. Their stage presence, some kids that come out, Jesse Grant and his sister Lucy. And they have this girl named Queen, I probably won't pronounce her right, but they go under the name Palm Rom, that's the name of their band.
Okay.
These kids, and I shouldn't use the word kids, anything, I'm 61 almost, so they ain't kids to me. But them and these bands I've mentioned, when you put them on a stage, they are fun to watch.
Yeah.
Nothing worse I hate to see than some guy, and there's lots of guys my age, they stand in one spot and they're like, when is this over? I want to go home and watch Netflix.
Right.
Now, there's lots of guys my age that really put on a show because they understand.
Right.
But you're supposed to sell beer and be an entertainer. So that means being energetic on stage.
Yeah.
Put on a good show, have your act together, don't be stoned and drunk and blah, blah, blah. You say that some musicians, they get all bent out. My job is to play music. Well, yeah, in part it is.
Right.
But that's not the whole package.
No, that's a very, very small part of the job.
One thing I heard years ago was, if you go see the Eagles live in concert, they're fantastic to hear. But man, they'll put you to sleep after the third song because they're boring as hell to watch.
Right.
So, I don't want to go see some guy just standing there playing it.
Yeah.
If I see a young guy or an old guy and he's just right into it and having the time of his life, because the audience feeds off that. If the audience sees that you're getting into what you're doing, they buy into it.
I will, because we're getting to the end here, but I will use your point to give a shout out to my favorite thing that I've ever seen in my life was specifically here in London. And I apologize because I do not remember the gentleman's name, but I'm sure you will be able to name him. I came to see Ray Stern, the universe featuring Ray, play a show here at, I can't remember the name of the club, but it's upstairs on top of the theater downtown. There's a big music hall downtown, and upstairs is a club.
Rum Runners.
Rum Runners. How can I forget that? Anyway, so we saw Ray at Rum Runners playing with a great act called This One Guy. And I was sitting in the back, kind of, watching all the stuff that's happened on stage. And there's this one guy that comes in, and I don't want to guess his age, but he's an older gentleman, gray hair, dressed to the fucking nines, in a suit and a string tie, a cowboy hat, and it's punk rock happening in the background, and he's going the whole time that he's in there, man. The whole time. I think his name's Bucky. Do you know who I'm talking about? Because apparently this guy's like a legend around here. He shows up to shows all over the place. But that guy from the floor, and I mean, we were in a room with entertainers. That guy was the most entertaining thing I've ever seen in my life because he just fucking loved it.
I gotta tell you something. There's two guys in this city that stick out to me. One gentleman, he's about 70. His name's Bev Camp.
That's who I'm talking about. It's Bev. That's who I'm talking about.
Bev.
Yes,
Oh,
sorry. Yeah. That's who I'm talking about.
Oh, he's such a sweetheart of a man.
And
he's at everything.
Yeah.
Now, here's the one thing. And when people get into talking about going to shows and blah, 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 we in the community have a mutual friend. His name is John Travers.
Okay.
He's confined to a wheelchair. Okay? So to come out to a show, he has to phone paratransit, line up a booking, get to the show, come in the show, and he's confined to a wheelchair all the time. Stays for a show, has to get picked up again and taken home.
So in other words, it's fucking work.
Exactly. John is the biggest supporter of live music in the city, and I often think to myself, and I've been guilty too, you know what? There's been nights I should have probably gone out and see. I see about 100, 120 shows a year here in the city. There's some nights I have friends playing, I say, I should go see them because I really want to see them, but it's pissing down rain or snow, and I just, John attends so many shows. He's such a huge supporter, and when I'm in one of those I don't want to get off my ass moods, I think of him because I just have to get up, walk, because I have legs that work, and go to my truck, hop in and go to a show. This guy has to go through a ritual, and he goes to almost as many shows as I do. And he's become London's greatest cheerleader for live music and attending events. And man, it would really suck with him not being around.
That's amazing, man.
So, like, what's that say right there?
That's brilliant. Jim, it has been a pleasure, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for spending some time with us here.
That'll do it for this episode of the AVB Podcast. Don't forget you can subscribe to our full audio episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere you find your audio podcasts. The full episodes, highlights, and our live off-the-floor performance videos can be found at our YouTube channel, and you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram at the AVB Podcast. Of course, you'll find links to our incredible sponsors and this week's guest in the description below. The AVB Podcast is part of the Border City Network. Find more great content at bordercitynetwork.com. See you next time, folks. Bye-bye.